I remember as a child, maybe as a young adult, I'd have to look up the year, watching the original television series Lost in Space. Oh, I love that one. Not the movies that followed, but Lost in Space. And I love the robot. Whenever there was danger, his mechanical arms would start going around and around saying, "Warning, Will Robinson, warning, warning, danger." Well, we're going to warn you today. And the danger is inflation. You say, "Oh my gosh, this is boring. I'm going to go to sleep." No, you need to stay with us. We are in the second week in November, and there are some clouds present and some clouds on the horizon, and we'll be looking at that. Something that is not dangerous, Logos. Logos is really a tool that I think anybody should have. According to a recent survey, 90% of evangelical churchgoers want more in-depth teaching. If you want to go deeper into the Word, Logos is the Bible study platform for you. It fuses powerful technology with biblical resources so you can access multiple Bible translations, teaching tools, search engines. Sam loves search engines. He loves the search on Logos.
I know I'm interrupting the copy, but let me just say.
I think you need to interrupt the copy just to keep it fresh.
Well, I don't know that I want Logos to know this, but I would have paid full price just for the fact book search feature. Like, it's that good. Now, there's tons of other features that they have. I mean, it is jam-packed full of all sorts of research. It's your research assistant. I mean, if you're thinking, man, I can't imagine having a research assistant for sermons. Well, you got it with Logos. But the fact book itself, just that search engine feature, it's so crisp, it's so good, and it gives you exactly what you need. I'd pay full price just for that.
What do you think the learning curve is for someone who's never been on Logos? What's it like?
Well, it's one of those things, like there's a search button or search box right at the top. So 0 minutes just to go up there and search. You can click on Factbook and it just pulls a bunch of stuff up. But then you could spend quite an amount of time digging into all the other features. But that's the great thing about Logos. It doesn't take anything to start, but it's got an abundance of features for you to master over time. So it's built very well.
Realize we've been in the middle of copy for about 3 minutes now?
I know. I'm sorry. I just really like it.
It is good. So you can access Bibles, search tools, commentaries, seminary level courses, audio books on your laptop, your desk, your tablet, wherever, and over 200,000 digital books. Now it's more affordable than ever. You can get started with a special rate from Church Answers for just $49. Go to logos.com/Church Answers. And we're going to be talking about inflation, Sam. And if there's a tool that is an inflationary, it doesn't stop inflation, but it is one of the best resources that is affordable during an inflationary period, this is Logos. So it fits very, very, very well. Okay, we're going to stop. We're going to talk about the serious inflationary warning for churches. We all know that we're in the midst of some of the biggest inflation for many of you in your lifetime. I do remember 1980-ish when it was a bit higher, and it was really the late 70s into the 1980s. And it was my first mortgage loan, Sam, we assumed a loan. Your mom and I were excited because we got to assume a mortgage loan of 10%.
Wow.
And we were excited. And then when we moved to Anniston, where you would end up being born, we had to get a new loan for 12%. So that was the inflation then. But we are going through an incredible inflationary time. It's going to present some serious challenges for churches. We're going to talk about those, and we're going to talk about the why behind the inflationary pressures, but we're also going to talk about what our response should be. Here's the point, Sam. Like you don't remember it. You were born in 1980. Many church leaders and members have not been through a period of prolonged inflation, so they don't know what they're up against.
If you're a millennial, you don't know what it's like.
Exactly.
Because we've never been in a period where there was a lot of inflation. I'm experiencing this I'm 42. I'm experiencing this for the first time in my life. and it is a problem. Yes, I realize that not everybody wants to read the Fed minutes, as they're called. It's
But you
very
and I do.
boring. Yeah, well, I do enjoy seeing what they have to say about the economy, and there's some value there. But most people aren't going to do that. But what most people know and feel every day is well, the local pizza joint here. I'm not going to name it because I don't want to sound like I'm bringing them down too much. But you order 2 medium pizzas now, and granted, it's a local place. It's got New York style dough. It's really good, but $50
Really?
for
Wow.
2 medium pizzas. And I get it. They are experiencing their own increase in costs, labor, the costs of ingredients, all of that stuff. And it's a major problem that your people are feeling. So let's just talk about, okay, we may not know all the ins and outs of what the Federal Reserve is going to do, but we do know that our people are feeling this, and it is something that is impacting the vast majority of your church, unless they're just super wealthy. And let's just go out on a limb and say that's not most church members in the United States.
And it started with high visibility with gas prices because there were signs throughout town about what the new prices were. But now it's throughout. Some of it's been affected by the supply chain. Some of it's been affected by government spending. Some of it has been affected by COVID, but it's really there and we're feeling it now. So we want to talk about what this warning means. First of all, you've got to understand that many of your church members don't know what it's like. And so this is going to be a shock to them if it's not already there. But also, church giving is often the first to be reduced or dropped, unfortunately. It becomes a discretionary item in your less committed members.
Yeah, I serve on the board of a large, not large nonprofit organization. I'll just say that it's a wonderful organization, and I was just talking with the CEO yesterday, and he was mentioning how their key givers, their key donors, their big donors are still giving. They don't plan to stop. But rather than, hey, we're just going to give all this at once, here you go, it's we're going to spread this out because we don't know what the market's going to do. And
Mm,
we just want to be more cautious. We're still planning on giving. We still want to give, but there's a bit of a cautiousness now with this giving. I would say that kind of mentality is in your church. The people that are giving, the people that worship God through giving, they're going to continue to
correct.
give. You're not going to go to zero, unless just calamity strikes, and I don't think that'll happen in most churches. But yeah, I think people are going to be a bit more cautious in how they give. And it's something to note. It's something to reflect in your budget. I know just recently we budgeted at West Bradenton about 5 to 7% lower for next year than what we took in this year,
Wow.
just to prepare.
And so you're lowering your expenses just in case you don't have the money coming in.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, we've done this the last 3 years, 3 budget cycles because of the
It's been COVID.
pandemic.
It's been COVID before then.
And we've been wrong. We've had these record giving years. And so we did it again this year. We're like, man, we think we're going to be in a recession. Let's make the budget 5 to 7% less than what we took in, just to be cautious. And for all I know, I'm wrong again on that. And I would love to be wrong. Here's the
Yes.
thing. I would love to be wrong on this issue. But I do think that you should be more cautious than the last couple of years. Ironically, more cautious than the last couple of years.
Let's be proactive with churches right now, Sam. One question that we can ask is, what can your church eliminate without hurting its ministry? Let me give you one example. I was talking to a pastor in California. He had an opening in his church for a full-time executive assistant. Instead of hiring that person, they went and found a part-time from Belay. And Belay provided them a part-time person, and they went from 40 hours to 20 hours. But the Belay person was so strong that they were able to save the money. I mean, that's just one example of You use a place like Belay. So you ask the question, what can you eliminate without hurting your ministry? Another thing you can do is you can say, how can we, in the midst of this challenge, increase the revenue without spending a lot of money for fundraising or even budgeting fundraising? We've got a partner, Sam, named Church Growth Services, and they have this really neat program called Generosity Academy. And basically, it's here's how you can raise money within your church, really on a DIY, do it yourself type of basis. Good teaching that takes place. Those are two things with two of our partners, Belay and the Church Growth Services and Generosity Academy, that you can do right away. I love the fact when we get to mention our partners, but these are really two good tools.
Yeah, that's Mike Stottlemyre, and all that he's doing with Church Growth Services is incredible. Grow Generosity Academy is a great tool. If you have the same concerns we do, you should check it out. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, I'm sure Amy will put that link in the show notes, because this is a way to promote your budget in a healthy way to your churches, particularly as you're going through an inflationary period. So both of those are two good suggestions. We've talked about this on more than one occasion, Sam, but it might be time, number 4, to consider again zero-based budgeting. Tell us what zero-based budgeting is.
Yeah, in its most basic form, zero-based budgeting is a reset to zero every year. So you take all of those line items that you have, and they just reset to zero. What a lot of churches will do, and we think that this is ill-advised, is, well, let's increase all of our ministry budgets by 5% because giving was up. So let's just tell everyone an additional 5%. The problem with that approach is, one, do you even need that additional 5%? And two, what if you want to do more than the 5%? So it's called across the board cuts or, increases. And it's better to just reset everything to zero and just say, okay, what do we really need in each of these areas? Now, you can immediately put a lot of your fixed costs back in. You're going to have utility bills. You're going to have to pay your insurance bill, all that stuff. But everything goes to zero, and then you put your fixed costs back in first. No, these are the things that that you're going to have to pay. And then you start adding in others. And when you get to the ministry budgets, you just say, what is God calling us to do? And then you put those in. Now, the key to successful zero-based budgeting is to start with your revenue first. So don't start with your expenses.
Which
everything goes to
do.
Yeah, most churches start with their expenses, the actual budget. But the most important part of creating a budget is properly projecting what you think you will bring in. So always start with your revenue. Always start with that top line. What do we think people will give in this year? And let's say, just for the sake of argument, we think that people are going to give $1 million at our church. That'd be a very healthy budget, of course. It'd be a very big budget, but we're going to bring in $1 million. Well, now you start approaching your zero-based budgeting knowing we have $1 million to quote unquote spend.
Right. Here's another tool. Church Answers offers this one. We have the Know Your Budget tool that is absolutely incredible. You input your budget, and it compares you to countless other churches. And so you can, not that you want to do what other churches are doing, but you might want to say, what's normal? What's standard? And you can have that tool when you sign up for our base level at Church Answers Silver, $9.97 a month. And you can use that at any point. You may use it 2 or 3 times a year, but you can use it repeatedly. And the good thing about it is we're continuing to get new church budgets in there. So it's constantly being updated. It's real-time update. So Church Answers, the membership is just becoming incredible at the basic level. You can ask any question at any time in Church Answers Central and get an answer, and you get all kind of benefits. And now we're adding Know Your Budget to that.
And not increasing the price.
Adding an incredible tool and not increasing the price. We'll put the show notes in that too. We have a lot of resources today, but that's because this type of discussion lends itself to these resources. So we have church growth services and their do-it-yourself way of promoting giving in your church, Generosity Academy, and then we have the Know Your Budget, and we've got all these tools, Sam, that I think will really help your church. And then we're going to talk about personnel, and probably a good time to even mention one more time belay. But now's the time to evaluate your personnel costs. We're not suggesting that you go in and fire everybody or get it back to half staff that you did, but it is time to evaluate. You may have some openings. It may be time to look at some shifts of responsibilities and compensation. But when you're getting to your zero-based budget, you also need to be looking at what is the best use of our personnel from a stewardship, God-given point of view every year when you do your budget.
Yeah, you typically, in most churches, most established churches, your personnel costs need to be between 45 and 50% of the budget. And if you have debt, what's that?
Know Your Budget will tell you these percentages.
Well, that's the great thing about the Know Your Budget tool is it gives you comparisons and ranges and things like that to help you better budget. So 45 to 55% for all in personnel costs. That's not just salaries, but salaries and benefits. And if you have debt, then it's going to be, you're going to be able to have, you won't be able to spend as much on personnel costs. And this is typically of any one area. This is the biggest area of most church budgets. So it's important to have a very good handle on what your personnel costs are, how many full-time employees you have, how many part-time employees, who do you really need, who do you not need. I'm certainly not advocating just slashing and burning your staff, but you need to be asking these questions every year. If you're not, you're probably getting to a point to where you're overstaffed. That's how churches get overstaffed, is you just don't ask the right questions. You don't look at it, and everyone gets a 3% raise every year, and it just keeps going up and up and up. Some of the things to consider when you're looking at your personnel costs is things like salary ranges and implementing those salary ranges. Somebody may be on the range and they just may be awesome at what they do, and you may be okay with that, but you at least need to know, they're high or they're low. And just asking the question, is somebody who's full-time, is this really a part-time position? So many churches have full-time positions when they really should be part-time.
More than ever. You are exactly right. More than ever.
And that's not a knock against the individual in that position. They may be awesome at what they do. But, if you're a church that, has, you've got an $800,000 budget and you have 12 full-time people, you're probably a little heavy on your staff. Your personnel costs are probably a little heavy.
And that's why that percentage is so helpful as a rule of thumb. If you start getting up much higher than half of your total budget going to personnel, you said 55. I'm going to differ with you a little bit. I like my cap. I like for the cap to be 50, but we're quibbling when we get to 5 percentage points on comparisons.
And we're 52 at West Bradenton, so I'm going to say 55.
Sure you are. Just so that you can be
it sounds healthier.
Again, those are the type of things that Know Your Budget can help. We've mentioned a lot of tools in this because we are going into some serious inflationary times. We want you, the church leaders, to have the right tools. Really encourage you to look at Church Growth Services Generosity Academy so you can look at raising money, raising funds, raising the budget yourself. I encourage you to look at Church Answers membership, the entry-level silver program at $9.97, so you can get your Know Your Budget. And I'd encourage you to look at Belay as a place to possibly bring in staff. I'm trying to think of how many Belay people I have hired over the years, but it's been quite a few in 3 different organizations, at Lifeway and at a school we started, and now at Church Answers. In fact, one of our VPs, Jana, was originally a lay person. So we got a lot of tools.
She was.
Got a lot of tools in here. Hey, before we go, let's give a shout out to Tyndale and this latest book by Frank Viola.
I'm always glad to give Tyndale a shout out.
Absolutely.
We love what they produce. They've got some incredible resources. And one new resource is by Frank Viola, The 48 Laws of Spiritual Power. It's written for anyone in church leadership, both vocational and lay leaders. 48 Laws of Spiritual Power is a fascinating look at what will increase spiritual power in your life and ministry. Best-selling author Frank Viola lays out the unchanging principles of tapping into God's power and releasing it to serve others. These 48 laws are based on over 30 years of ministry experience, trench tested in Frank's life and the lives of others who have spent decades in ministry. These laws will equip you to look for God's power in your ministry and give you what you need for ministry to thrive. So we've got a link in the show notes. Go check out Frank Viola's new book, published by Tyndale, 48 Laws of Spiritual Power. Well, thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. I hope some of these tools and tips were helpful to you. Inflation is
and timely points.
Tools, tips, and timely points. Inflation's here. It's undeniable. There might be a debate about a recession or not, but the financial times are tougher than they were.
Sure.
And hopefully you can help your church with some of the things that we have mentioned to you. We thank you again for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.